All right, I know I've been away for a little while. You can always tell when it's cold down here in the office, but I haven't been here in a while. And it's, by the way, it's something like 85 degrees outside. I'm not sure how it gets colder here. Welcome to a new episode of The National Pulse. I'm trying to bring in this clip from Jen Psaki real quick that I want you guys to hear. Let me see if I can do it here.
Giuliani, there are those out there who will suspect the timing of this. It's being done under this administration, done under Merrick Garland as Attorney General. They might accuse this administration of political targeting.
Well, first, I can assure you that what is new or may feel different in this administration is that the Justice Department is independent. The president made that clear when he announced the nomination of Merrick Garland. And the Attorney General made clear in his hearing that he would not have taken the job unless he could operate in an independent manner. So people should know that. And I assure you our focus here is on the joint address tonight, on announcing the American Families Plan, and certainly not on Rudy Giuliani.
This is the news, of course, that Rudy Giuliani had his offices raided, a search warrant executed. You know, all the Southern District stuff all over again. But this is signal. This is really important. There's not a lot that Bannon and I disagree on, ladies and gentlemen, but this is one of them. And, you know, mine is, I am convinced that the Ukraine stuff is not a sideshow to a sideshow. And we'll get into it. All of this wraps up into just the same techniques, the same, kind of extortionist mindset that pervades in Washington, D.C. right now. As the news comes out this afternoon, the news, obviously, you and I, member of the audience, we have known for so very long this great grand cover-up by Andrew Cuomo and his office of the death numbers in New York, that he was murdering people. There's no other way to put it, he was murdering people at the height of the coronavirus pandemic last year. We all knew it, we all called it out, and finally, it's April the 28th, the year of our Lord 2021, and the New York Times is starting to report on it today. You can tell, by the way, when I've just been to the gym, the blood is flowing, ladies and gentlemen, and not least because of yes, that's right, Jen Psaki on television a moment ago saying, listen, the DOJ is completely independent, and that may be something that's quite new. Listen, these are the same morons that were laughing from both sides of their face when Bill Barr publicly disagreed with President Trump, yet they have the audacity to go on television and claim that the DOJ didn't have independence over the last 4 years, despite them using Barr himself as a cudgel against the president. Okay? Can we be clear about that, Ms. Psaki? And you are lucky, okay? You are lucky, ladies and gentlemen, that you don't have to look at the face, right? I'm not being derogatory or misogynistic. I'm saying what she's doing is she's sneering at the camera when she's saying this. She knows she's lying. She knows you know she's lying. And she knows you can't do anything about it, right? She is sneering down Lenz and saying, of course, this investigation into Mr. Giuliani is completely independent. Yeah, except that it's obviously not. It's obviously incredibly well-timed, and it goes to the heart of one of the single most important parts of the entire Biden corruption story arc, right? Which is Ukraine. Why are they so interested in Ukraine? Why do they keep coming back to Ukraine? Why do they keep prosecuting things around Ukraine? I mean, are we really to genuinely believe that Joe Biden just has a real hard-on for Vladimir Putin? Or is something else going on there? Or is something wildly geopolitically complex being used and abused by the Biden crime syndicate, because that's what it is, in order to enrich themselves? It was only 2 weeks ago that we dropped the story where Mike McCormick, the former White House stenographer, went back through his notes, went through the hard drive from hell with us here at the National Pulse, and went, oh my goodness, I can finally place Hunter Biden in the West Wing with Joe Biden right before the Burisma deal was signed. And nobody else has reported that yet. Nobody else was able to report that. People would intimate it. People would say, okay, that may have happened. Nobody could prove it. We proved it. And not a single other DC reporter has picked up on that factual evidence that we dropped a couple of weeks ago. It's extraordinary. And now the knife is being twisted on the whole Ukraine stuff again. It's all there. It's all there. There is mountains and mountains of signal right there. And I need you to understand that, because we're going to hear so many fibs and falsehoods over the coming weeks. Oh, Giuliani did, he took a briefing from this guy and he lobbied for this guy. Literally what Hunter Biden was paid millions of dollars to do. For daddy. 10% to the big guy. And by the way, again, you're welcome. I'm doing this for you. I am reading, or rather listening to, Hunter Biden's Beautiful Things memoir that sold less than my first book, No-Go Zones, by the way. The people in D.C. who Hunter Biden went to parties with, the people who suck up to his family, the people who went to the Boardwalk Biden bash over at the Naval Observatory 3 times. He had those parties there. Joe Biden had those parties there. Even those people couldn't be bothered to buy the book and give it. That's how much they dislike the guy. Okay, he's eminently dislikable, and he comes across as that in the book. I have to tell you, there is merit to us from a reporting perspective in reading this or listening to this, as I'm doing right now. Not right now, doing a podcast right now, but we will have plenty of reporting to come off the back of it. It's a treasure trove if you know what you're looking for. Hunter Biden always slips up. He always leaves a little Parmesan trail that we can follow. And I've got some reporting to come out of this. Chris Hines. Pay attention to that name. Chris Hines, stepson of John Kerry. You want to know why Biden cannot fire John Kerry on the back of this leaked audio that came out that showed that basically John Kerry was advising the Iranian regime, right? Why could Joe Biden not fire him? Because Chris Hines, John Kerry's stepson, knows where the bodies are buried in the Biden crime syndicate, because guess what? He was one of Hunter Biden's critical business partners. And Hunter Biden admits it in the book. That's where you connect the dots. That's why, despite my better instincts of not wanting to go through this thing, I finally sucked it up and I'm going through it. So we'll bring you plenty of reporting out of that and linking the dots for you. I want to bring in now somebody else who's been linking some massive dots to do with the Matt Gaetz, I would say, story, but it doesn't look like any big story has really come out of this thing, at least not from the establishment media's perspective. It looks like actually a bigger story is going to be coming out to the contrary. My guest is Arthur Bloom. He is one of the senior reporters over there at the American Conservative, the AmericanConservative.com, editor of the American Conservative Online. He's just a fantastic investigative reporter. Arthur, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hey, glad to be here.
I'm sorry about my long introduction. After honestly, I'll do some pull-ups at the gym and then the blood just gets pumping and I can't stop talking. Although you've known me for years, you know that to be the case anyway. Arthur, you've got this exceptional story up at the moment at the AmericanConservative.com. The Gaetz scandal isn't about Matt Gaetz. How so?
Yeah, so there are basically 2 big things that I've kind of contributed to this story over the last couple of weeks. And the piece that I wrote for today is sort of, it has one of those 2 pieces, but it's also kind of just telling the background and kind of piecing together that the parts of the story that have only come out in fragments from the mainstream media. The first thing that we reported was about these texts from an employee of the Israeli consulate that seemed to have advanced knowledge of the DOJ investigation. And then the second piece that's significant to the story today is that I was told by a senior Trump administration official that Bob Kent, who's the man who Matt Gaetz accuses of extorting his family, was a State Department contractor and that he had been approved for a $75,000 payment from the State Department. Now, there are a lot of implications to that. I could go into them, but I'll leave it there for now.
Well, I mean, I hope you... No, wait, I really need you to go into them because that is an explosive bit of information so we heard a couple of weeks ago from Charlie Chester and the CNN types, the leaked audio that came out of Project Veritas, that, hey, they were targeting Matt Gaetz because it helps the Democrats. Fine. Okay, we get that. We all kind of suspected it all along, but, between Paula Reed's pseudo-reporting and Gabby Orr having to correct her stories multiple times over at CNN, that's abundantly it clear. And I'm glad we got that on the record, and a credit to James O'Keefe and the Project Veritas guys for getting that done. Now what you're saying to us is that, hey, it's not just a partisan thing that's going on here, but actually a branch of the US government had agreed to pay one of the people, Bob Kent. Now, we've talked about Bob Kent on this podcast before. I did a whole teardown of his bizarre interview with Chris Cuomo. This man, he goes on television and he says, I lost 4 men trying to get this guy out of Iran, whether he's, you and I have discussed this before, whether he's on the island or somewhere else or whatever it is, right? I lost 4 men. Cuomo doesn't bat an eyelid, presumably because his brother's lost thousands and thousands of people in New York over the past year. Losing 4 men doesn't seem like a huge deal, maybe, to Chris Cuomo. But this guy goes on television and he effectively accepts that he has been at least extorting a sitting U.S. congressman from the position of the U.S. congressman. He said in that interview, by the way. Go ahead.
That's right. The thing that's kind of interesting about the Chris Cuomo interview is, it's important to be clear. Much of what Bob Kent is talking about that he either had done in the past or was planning to do, it would be illegal without the blessing of the U.S. government. It's like you and I got together a commando team and decided we were going to go spring somebody out of an Iranian prison. That would be illegal, right? Right. And it would be the thing that's kind of been hanging in the background here is Bob Kent, just by virtue of kind of the confidence that you'd have to go on Chris Cuomo's show and just talk about all of this. He probably believes that he had at least the implicit blessing of the U.S. government. And what this senior Trump administration official told me indicates that it may be more than just the implicit blessing. It may be the explicit blessing, including money. And so there are kind of a couple of other aspects of this that are worth unpacking. I mean, Gaetz has used the word extortion. Now, the thing that word has a specific meaning. If the Bob Kent piece, if the ask for the $25 million and the, this is going to reflect well on your legal troubles and it may get you out of them, that is not in and of itself extortion. It's taking advantage of somebody. It may be seedy. It may look bad. It may be, untoward behavior, but it's not extortion. It is extortion, however, if this whole piece related to Greenberg. So up till now, there are 2 pieces of this whole story, right? There's the Bob Levinson stuff, and then there's the Joel Greenberg indictments down in Florida. Joel Greenberg is the friend of Matt Gaetz, who seems to be a bad guy. He was, forging IDs. He was the one who seems to have been procuring women for some of these outings. And he's now been indicted on several things. And the more you look at Greenberg, I mean, just based on the reporting that's come out in Politico about the Gaetz scandal, there are a lot of things that kind of point to the possibility that this guy was sort of gathering blackmail, compromising information or something like that on people. And I'll say why. So the 2 unnamed sources that were close to Gaetz have said that either Greenberg or the woman he was paying were trying to incriminate them. So this is a suspicion that's out there that's kind of separate from just Gaetz himself. And second, the woman who was initially reported to be a 17-year-old, who turns out not to have been a 17-year-old, her legal bills have been paid by Greenberg. That was reported in Politico. So the picture that emerges there is, Greenberg has procured this woman who can be plausibly portrayed as a minor, and then after this all happens, he kind of pays her legal bills. That looks like a sort of entrapment scheme, right? And so up until now, we've sort of treated that Greenberg stuff and the Bob Kent stuff as separate. Right. In order for it to be truly extortion, they have to be connected, right? Extortion is not, you're in a jam and I'm going to kind of try to take advantage of you and pretend I'm going to get you out of that jam. That's not extortion. Extortion is getting something on you and then making you do something.
Right.
So if these two things are connected, then it actually can be, I think, plausibly construed as extortion.
Right.
Now, here, I'll go into a little bit about why I think that's not an unreasonable thing to wonder. The first reason, I think, is that just the timing of the New York Times story that initially broke this about the DOJ investigation, that came out in a way that seems like it was designed to scuttle the meeting between Don Gaetz and Stephen Alford, the meeting at which Don Gaetz is supposed to be wearing a wire.
Right.
So there's a big story about the Greenberg investigation that is, by timing, seems to be connected to this Bob Kent stuff. And then there's these messages that we published that indicate, Bob Kent's close friend at the Israeli consulate had advanced knowledge of it. And then third, in Bob Kent's own letter to Don Gaetz, he mentions this whole Greenberg situation. So it's all circumstantial, but it does, point to the idea that these two things might be connected. So this is kind of my theory. And one thing that I think Gaetz, it's a little bit perplexing to me about Gaetz's response to some of this. If Greenberg is doing what the reporting seems to suggest he was doing, which is obtaining compromising information on people, I mean, I think you can just piece together that assumption from what's already out there. And then you combine that with the fact that Greenberg's lawyer has pointed the finger at Gaetz. The big narrative from the media about a week or two ago, when Greenberg's lawyer went out of the courtroom and said,
right.
If
I were Matt Gaetz, I'd be feeling very uncomfortable right now.
He's going to be shaking in his boots.
Right.
That kind of thing. And there were a couple of other stories that suggested he had flipped. Now, I don't doubt at all that Greenberg is singing like a canary to the feds. The question is whether there are people other than Gaetz he may be flipping on. That ultimately is the more interesting question to me. But still, given that I think you can reasonably infer at this point that Greenberg was obtaining compromising information on people, you would think, I think Gaetz probably cannot have the confidence that the Department of Justice is kind of going to go out of its way to vindicate him. So Gaetz probably has to kind of tell his story a little bit more aggressively, I guess. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Because you can piece together what Greenberg was doing just from the public reporting, I mean, I think Gaetz could probably point the finger right back at it and say, it sure looks like you were trying to blackmail me. And so that's the piece there. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to get into in this story is just how kind of odd this Levinson rescue effort was.
Yeah. Because we've covered a lot of detail here, Arthur, and I just want to recap a little bit for the audience here.
Sure.
This piece is called "The Gaetz Scandal Isn't About Matt Gaetz." It's written by Arthur Bloom, our guest right now. It's up on theamericanconservative.com. I implore everybody to go and read it and share it. It's incredibly well written and well sourced. So let's just reset there a little bit, because I had before all of this started happening, and as you said, the New York Times piece, I had never heard of Levinson. I did not know that any of this was going on, and I imagine a lot of people feel the same way. But you've just correct me if I'm wrong. You've had an eye on this for a while, right?
Well, when the Treasury Department issued sanctions on two Iranians related to the Levinson case in December, I noticed it, but the Trump administration was pretty hawkish on Iran, and I just assumed it was kind of part of that. And it wasn't until the Gaetz scandal broke that I kind of started looking at exactly how this Levinson lobbying effort had been going on within the administration. And it had been going on for years. And what's interesting is different federal bureaucracies seem to have had different opinions about some of it. And what I say in the piece is, Levinson has been a very, very high-profile case by multiple administrations, Obama and Trump. Obama actually brought up the Levinson case with the Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani. And then Levinson was not included in a prisoner exchange in 2016. Now, even both right and left officials, nobody has really publicly, no politician has actually said Levinson is in Iran. That's one of the murky things. I mean, we probably don't want to go into all of the background about Levinson because there's a lot, and a lot of it's very murky. But suffice it to say that there is no major politician who has actually said that Levinson is in Iran. All of the official statements from Marco Rubio to Hillary Clinton, they've said he's being held somewhere in Southwest Asia. And, if Obama is bringing up his case with the Iranian president, say what you will about Obama being a bad president or a bad guy and all of that. You don't make an allegation like that and then accept it and not have him included in the prisoner exchange unless you're reasonably satisfied by the information.
Right.
And so the people that were kind of lobbying for Levinson's case in the Trump administration have basically said that the Obama administration didn't care about him. They were happy to leave him to die in an Iranian prison. But I guess I have a hard time believing that. Now, fast forward a little bit. It's just hard to square that idea with the fact that Obama would bring it up with the Iranian president, right?
Right.
Now, moving forward a little bit into the Trump years, there's what's so perplexing about it to me is that the pressure over the Levinson case actually rises as we start to find, or as more people start to concede that he's probably dead. For instance, the family of Bob Levinson, they've been very active in lobbying for his cause for years. March of last year, they were told by the FBI that he's dead, and they accepted it. They gave statements to the media, yeah, he's dead,
right.
All of that. And but it wasn't until after that. So after that, the action actually increases, which is really odd. There are a number of podcasts about him, and that's when Bob Kent really seems to get really interested and start speaking publicly about it. And then it isn't until April of the next year when the company is incorporated that by Stephen Alford, who was the guy that was supposed to meet with Don Gaetz when Don Gaetz was wearing a wire. That meeting didn't happen because of the story that came out in the New York Times. Mm-hmm. Now, Stephen Alford's consulting firm, the guy who was supposed to meet with Gaetz, Alford in the first place is a convicted felon. He's like a scam artist.
Right.
But his consulting firm was incorporated by the Levinson family's attorney, this guy David McGee, who Gaetz himself has talked about, has said he's part of this effort to extort me and all that. But whatever one might think about that, it's really quite odd that Levinson's family attorney would incorporate a company that's working on the Levinson case after the family has conceded that he's dead, right? It's sort of hard to think that this is a good faith effort to rescue him if the family has kind of given up. And that's one of the many things that's strange about this. One of the others is that Bob Kent was working on this going back to 2018, and he was talking to the State Department, may have been paid by the State Department. The amount of money as of 2018 that he needed to make this rescue happen was $250,000,
right.
$250,000.
Yeah.
Within 3 years, the ask to the Gaetz family is 100 times that.
Yep.
It's $25 million. What counts for the difference there? Well, why did they need $24.75 more million for the rescue effort 3 years later? It's hard to see that there's any kind of above board explanation for that.
Well, and one would perhaps jump to the not ludicrous conclusion that actually, when these things happen, there's quite a lot of profit on the top of these things, and of course the questions must be asked: where is that profit held and what is it used for in the longer term. But I just want to reiterate something, because some of the numbers you're talking about, it bears thinking about, Arthur. It bears thinking about that back in 2012 they were offering $1 million rewards for information. By 2015 they were offering $5 million rewards for information. By 2019 they were offering $20 million rewards for information, and then 6 months after that, after the State Department's Rewards for Justice program offers $20 million, just less than 6 months, or 5 months after that, they declare him dead, right? The US government goes, he's dead. The family says he's dead. And then, as you say, all of this other work starts piling up on the back end of that to get him back, to get a dead man back. And
that's right. And the $20 million reward is unheard of. It's unprecedented.
Completely unheard of.
And the other thing here that's sort of interesting is Bob Kent, and then there's one other source. There were people feeding information to the U.S. government related to the Levinson case that the State Department regarded as credible, but the FBI did not. Kent is one of them. The other one is a guy named Walton Martin. And according to the reporting by Jeff Stein in the Daily Beast, he got a look at some of the documents that Kent had obtained, and they didn't seem credible to him. I'll quote from it. Upon expert examination, turned out to be a mix of clumsy fabrications and authentic papers of unconfirmed provenance. And then this other guy, Walton Martin, the FBI didn't treat him as credible, but he was still passing these reports directly to John Bolton and Mike Pompeo. So the thing that I really wonder about this part of the story is who were Walton Martin, who's just this researcher in the Philadelphia suburbs, and then Kent. Does Kent really have a source of a network of sources in Iran? I kind of doubt that at this point, to be perfectly honest.
Okay. Hang on. You kind of doubt it at this point? This guy, he couldn't go back. I want everybody to go back and watch that Chris Cuomo interview again, because he's asked basic questions, like really easy softball questions, right? Because he's on there to do a job. Somebody's put him up to it, and CNN's agreed to do it, and he asks really basic questions, and there are like silences. There's dead air for significant parts of that interview while he tries to formulate, this kind of empathetic response that he's trying to give. The fact that he didn't have all of those things to hand, the fact that he didn't have answers ready to go, it speaks to just this kind of total like the lack of preparedness, because he didn't want to be the story, right? This was always about something else.
When you think about it, guys like Bob Kent and Walton Martin, the sources of the bad information, they're probably cutouts for somebody.
Right.
Now, the question of who, I don't know. That's the sort of thing we're not going to find out unless there's like an intelligence investigation into this.
Right.
But I think if there's fake information being fed to Mike Pompeo's State Department directly, it looks like, from these guys circumventing the suspicions of the FBI that build the case for more aggressive action with respect to Iran. This actually, kind of reminds you a little bit of the old school neocons, right? And Bolton was one of the ones receiving this information. It's a little bit like the situation with the Yellow Cake forgeries in the run-up to the Iraq War, about how this basically bad information made it all the way to the White House. And so I think there's probably something similar going on here. It speaks to, among other things, I think we definitely need answers from Mike Pompeo about all of this stuff. Why was he treating this information as credible when the FBI wasn't? And then also the picture that emerges if Kent is a State Department contractor. Gaetz is one of the people that, if he's not considering running in 2024, he's certainly one of the people vying for the mantle of the post-Trump GOP.
Right.
And so in that sense, he's a rival of Pompeo. And so you have one 2024 contender going after a possible, guy claiming Trump's mantle. There's sort of a rivalrousness here that's really very ugly.
It's amazing. It's amazing work, Arthur. What else? What else should we know about this, or is that, or do you think I'm trying to push some traffic your way as well. I want people to go and read it, not just listen to this podcast. Not that you guys need my traffic. You're doing a great job over there at the American Conservative. But is there anything else that you want to leave us with on this story?
Well, I think as with a lot of things like this, one of the reasons I've been, I say in the piece that Gaetz should kind of get out there a little bit more, is because the one of the things that's most sort of shameful about the Republican Party in its current form is their total unwillingness to look into some of these, this kind of duplicity and skullduggery in the intelligence community, Justice Department and State Department, the kind of when they overlook some really bad stuff because they also support aggressive measures against Iran. That at the end of the day isn't very principled. And so what I'd like to see, honestly, is hearings about that. I'd like to see, frankly, Pompeo testify. But is there any Republican senator who'd actually go there? No, I kind of doubt it. So I think the best thing that conservatives can do right now is sort of basically state very firmly that we don't buy any of this crap. And that's probably the one thing, because that's the one thing that's going to, keep the Justice Department's nose to the grindstone, is if they try to, at the end of the day, I don't think Gaetz is going to be indicted. But there are other ways they could kind of try to let out the steam of this scandal, rather than kind of getting to the bottom of it. And so the louder you are at the moment, probably the less likely it is for that to happen. Anyway, last thing I say, I have to plug our podcast because I'm on a podcast. The TAC Right Now. I do it with Ryan Grodowski and Helen Andrews. So subscribe to that in addition to this one.
That's TAC, T-A-C, Right Now. You can find it at theamericanconservative.com. Arthur, where can people follow you specifically?
Yeah, it's at J_Arthur_Bloom on Twitter.
All right, and we'll have a link up in the podcast description on the show today. Arthur, thank you so much for joining us here today on the National Pulse.
Glad to do it. Take care.
Wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing revelations coming forth about all of this right now. Don't worry, we're not at the end just yet. I'm just playing the transition music. The transition from our interview with J. Arthur Bloom to our conversation, you and I. Or me. Our conversation, you and I. All right, anyway. Look, there's a reason. I just wanted to be upfront with you for a second about... I know a lot of you look forward to the podcast, and I can't get to it every day, and I know at this point it's been several days since the last one, and I just wanted to be upfront with you about a lot of why I'm not doing a daily one at the moment. I don't believe in just talking to you for the sake of talking to you. I don't believe in coming on here every day and just covering, the general news cycle. I'm not good at it for a start. I do not feel passionate about sort of daily churn news stories that we're all supposed to get really hit up about, and oh my goodness. I don't do that. This is going to sound really arrogant here. I don't mean it to. I just like to think about stories a little longer and think about narratives and trajectories and investigation lines of inquiry and things like that. And you see, you talk to somebody like Arthur Bloom, and you probably, as well as me, got lost there, right, during a lot of that interview, because he's so deep in the detail of this case. And that's kind of what I like to do as well. I get my little writing tablet. I start sketching things out, ideas, avenues of inquiry, and sort of scientifically, not scientism, scientifically go through and eliminate things from the inquiry. You connect the dots, the dot doesn't end up connecting. Okay, you scratch that and you go to the next thing. You say, okay, well, and that's real reporting, right? That's real investigative work. That isn't what these armies of morons in the corporate news media do. Did you know, by the way, somebody told me the other day And I tweeted this, so forgive me if you heard it from me already. But did you know, I'm just getting comfortable here, that fact checkers work on quotas? Think about that. They work to a number of articles that are expected of them every month, and they get paid for reaching that quota. They get paid, commensurately with how much they produce per that quota. So the next time you see, the USA Today stuff is the worst of all of this, by the way. USA Today will fact check other fact checks. They'll fact check the same thing twice. And they'll also fact check just the most... talking about Matt Gaetz, USA Today fact checked whether Matt Gaetz had a mullet in college or not. Now, I can exclusively reveal to you here, ladies and gentlemen, that Matt Gaetz didn't have a mullet in college. Not that there's anything wrong with mullets. Business in the front, party in the back. No problem with that. But the fact checkers, I didn't realize this. Maybe I'm late to this. Maybe you already know this. But I didn't. I didn't realize. How ludicrous would that be, by the way? Even if it's not just these silly little fact checks. What if I said to Natalie Winters, hey, unless you produce 50, investigative stories every month, you're not getting paid. Or you're not getting paid the full amount. That would be ludicrous. You cannot operate real reporting like that. It's like parking tickets or pulling people over by the side of the road because there's a quota to fill. At the end of the day, you just end up doing it because you have to do it, not because there's any truth in the matter, not because there's any veracity behind what you're doing. And so I only come here and speak before you and with you when I've got something to say, frankly. And when I don't have anything to say, I'm just not going to jump on here and start gibbering about my opinions. Sorry, I found some fluff on my leg. That's why you hear me moving away from the microphone. Now, there's a lot going on out there right now, and the reason I started the show today by talking about the Giuliani stuff, I'm not going to say that I expected it in the sense that when the news broke this afternoon, I was, I think, only about an hour ahead in my sourcing of the news cycle, knowing, right, of the New York Times story breaking. But it doesn't surprise me in the sense that there is this whole curiosity about Ukraine, about Hunter Biden, about Burisma, about the $1 billion aid. Remember the $1 billion aid where Biden said, you're not getting that aid unless you fire the prosecutor.
Come on, man.
Exactly. It's imperative for Joe Biden to hide. It's imperative. And you know what? I will also say this. I think that something is being used by the Kremlin and by the FSB and by Vladimir Putin as geopolitical fodder. And frankly, it's philosophical fodder too. The battle of civilizations, right? With Joe Biden really representing the liberal woke and Vladimir Putin representing the... Putin representing the, traditionalist and authoritarian kind of wing of Eastern European culture and philosophy. Yes, I think that's going on. So there's a semblance of truth to it when they say, Russia. You and I know there's no semblance of truth when it comes to actually Russia being a threat. But Putin's ideology or philosophy is certainly a threat. Certainly a threat to liberalism. Certainly a threat to Joe Biden's view of the world. And there's something there that Biden desperately needs to never come out. Something way more interesting and juicy than a quid pro quo over $1 billion aid package. I think it goes to the heart of his malfeasance. in public office over the entirety of his career. You know, I'm reading or listening to beautiful things, and I really don't recommend it. I do not waste your time. Even if you can get it for free, I wouldn't waste your time, money, effort, blinks, anything. Just don't bother. It's just not worth it. But there's little nuggets that I'm picking up on that kind of validate a few of the avenues of inquiry that we've been making into the hard drive from hell. And there's more that we're going to be reporting out on that as well in the coming weeks. 2 more things before I let you go today. 3 more things. 3 more things. Number 1, I finished listening to, as I say, I was at the gym for the first time in a week today, and I was listening to the Bongino interview with President Trump. And I don't really like these President Trump phone interviews. I don't know about you, but I feel like he's underselling himself at this point. I feel like, and Bongino got this right, by the way. He said, please do a big rally. And I think that's what people want to see, right? And be a part of, not just kind of listening to the. I'm not saying same old in a pejorative sense, but it is the repetition now of the same lines of inquiry. And I get it. We don't want to stop looking into November 3rd. We will never stop looking into November the 3rd. I was at the forefront of that. I will remain at the forefront of that. But I think the President of the United States, Donald Trump, the real President of the United States, Donald Trump, kind of should rise above that now, right? Let everyone else, let the army take care of that. We've got your back. He, I think, needs to be the focal point of the fight back. Up there on stages, macho man, you know, doing the dance, the jig, get the happy warrior back. Anyway, I listened to it, and you know, of all of the interviews he's done like that, Bongino is the best interviewer, I think. He does ask far more interesting questions. He's going to the heart of FISA abuses. There are a couple of times during that. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. And tell Dan that I sent you as well, because he's always hyping the National Pulse on his show, and I'm really grateful for it. I want to do it back. It's not that I ever intend to not hype these other people. I just always forget. I'm just get so wrapped up in the sound of my own voice, the stories we're talking about. By the time, so I look at the board and I see, it says 42 minutes. I should probably start rapping soon. And then, not rapping as in, I'm not going to rap for you. Don't worry. So that's one thing. Go and listen to that interview. I really think Trump needs to get out of that format, though. I think he needs to go back to this rally format. Really start commanding the news cycle again, because you know they're going to cover it. You know they have to. Their ratings will spike when they do. I think it would be amazing. He says he may do it on the back of the midterms. I think too late. Do it now. Let's go. There's all this pent-up energy out there. Put it to use. Because otherwise people are getting frustrated. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm getting frustrated. The second thing is that I wanted to mention is I kind of reformed some of the membership tiers on the National Pulse website. So you can go to fundrealnews.com and see the new tiers. We introduced a new one called Super Backer, and it's $2,500, which I know is a lot. I heard all of you just go, right? I know it's a lot. I know it's not going to be for most people. That's okay. But it's for people who want to come on the podcast and who have the investment to make on something like that. Put it this way, advertisers and PR people and all that will spend tens of thousands of dollars a month hyping things like live read ads and stuff like that on podcasts. Tens of thousands of dollars a month, right? So I figured, hey, cut out the middleman. People who want to come on, obviously I'll do a little bit of vetting, but people who want to come on, they can pay $2,500. It's, we're one of the top podcasts in the country. And you can come on. And it helps us, because we're trying to grow the site. And I'm just grateful for everybody that chips in at Fundreal. We had just a massive, massive influx of membership over the last couple of days. So I'll get to reading some of the names out, giving the shout outs to the new members in just a second. So that's the second thing. Now I'm already forgetting what the third thing is. You see, there's so many things that I'm juggling in my brain right now, whether it's the Gaetz stuff, and believe me, I'm as deep dive on that stuff as Arthur and anyone else is, okay? There's so much of the CCP stories that Natalie's breaking. I had a third thing, and now it's totally escaping me what that third thing was. You know, there's the Wuhan lab stuff, which every day, I was saying to a friend of mine this morning, every day, it's like the Wuhan lab stuff becomes like that 2 or 3% more credible in the eyes of the corporate media. You see Sanjay Gupta coming out, you see Bill Maher and all these guys. Every day, there's just that little bit more and more and more in terms of credibility behind the theory that we first floated nearly 18 months ago now. It'll be 18 months, let's see, February, March, April, May, June, July. In July, right? So, let's see. And that's something that we just keep pushing on the facts. And just look, I could spend all day with you here and go through some of these stories we're breaking. Natalie Winter spots very wisely that Biden's chief of staff's wife, who's now nominated for a government job, by the way, despite Biden saying, "Oh, there won't be jobs for family members in my regime." He didn't say regime. She's going to be working for the US government shortly and openly collaborates with Chinese state media. Listen, when it was the Trump administration, imagine you had that situation going on, but with Russia today, right? Everybody would have lost their collective minds. They often did lose their collective minds if somebody had once appeared on Russia Today 10 years ago. Oh, and the people that the media are putting on television every day, the quote-unquote scientists debunking the Wuhan lab leak theory, are active collaborators with the Wuhan lab. They have worked with and for the Wuhan lab. They have conducted joint operations with the Wuhan lab. And they have been honorees of the Chinese Communist Party. Well, there's just... So I just want you to understand, I just don't want you to be mad at me, because I know a lot of people wait for the podcast, and then when there isn't one, you think maybe I'm sitting around with my feet up. I'm not. I wish I was. I'm sure a lot of you wish you were as well. No, the truth is that burnout happens, the mind burns out. Sometimes you need those days to churn through the information and sit down and just get a pen and you map things out. It happens. So let me say thank you to some of our new members to play us out. Martin, Linda, Arthur, Ronald, Marvin, Dennis, Dan, Susan, Carolyn, John, Grace, Linda with a Y, Elvia, Robert, Lorna, Deborah, John, Renee, Thelma. Oh my goodness, there's a name I'm really going to butcher here, and I'm very sorry about it. Shyla? I've never seen that name before. Timothy, Matt, Byron, Laura, Jennifer, Cheryl, Diane, Karen, Stuart, Emmy, Rhonda, Beth, Donna, Mary, Melody, Robert, Adelaide, Rich, Mel, Tonya, Todd, Jennifer, Kelly, Lon, Don, Paula, Sean. You see, I can keep going. It's amazing. Timothy, Mary again, Diana, Patricia, Diane, Anita, Sally, Jennifer. Lots of ladies. Oh, and by the way, there's a limited number. If you want to sign up at fundrealnews.com, become one of our backers. We're not backed by billionaires, no corporate money. Use the promo code investigations. It'll get you a discount, get all the cool stuff. And I will try to see you again soon. I know we all look forward to this. I'll try my hardest.